spring training, pitchers and catchers less than a month away. Here to talk about that and more from the Baltimore Sun. Haven't spoken to him in a while. Let's welcome back to the show Jacob Calvin Meyer. Jacob, good afternoon. How you feeling?
Hey, fellas, if you hear Sesame Street in the background, that's what's entertaining. Parenting my toddler right now, and I got to put out a call to action to any listeners. If anybody has any tips and tricks for a pretty bad diaper rash, please email me at jameyer@baldsun.com. Because man, I've tried everything and there's just nothing's working. And so if you guys have any tips, we can start there, and then I get to talk about baseball or whatever.
Well, yeah. Well, my daughter's just turned 29, so I'm way past that game, and I used to make my wife do all the heavy lifting anyway. But Alice Camponi will reach out to you. Give him some advice real quick. Come on, you're the one talking in my ear. Let's go.
My suggestion is Desitin does it wonders. Do it about like 3 times a day, and then also just like hydration. It sounds crazy, but water helps.
There you go.
Okay, that's good to know. She's got some juice right now watching Sesame Street, so let's hope that does the trick.
Thank you, Dr. Kevorkian, on the other side of the glass over there. All right, let's get to baseball. You heard Kyle Tucker, the stuff during Nolan's update. But Bo Bichette, 3-year deal with the Mets, $42 million a year, opt out after the first couple of seasons, et cetera. So he leaves the AL East, goes to the NL East. Your thoughts, Jacob, on Bo Bichette going into the grinder that is New York and the Mets coming off a disappointing season?
Yeah, obviously that deal is the domino effect of the Kyle Tucker one that dropped last night, him getting $60 million a year from the Dodgers. I think that this has been an interesting and weird free agency period, and maybe even going a couple years back where because of baseball's system where you've got to go 6 years before you hit free agency, then you get to a point where you're 20, 32 before you get there. Then these teams are unwilling to give out these 6, 7, 8-year deals, but they are willing to seemingly sort of overpay for the player in what they believe is the prime. So 3 years for Bichette, 4 years for Kyle Tucker. And these deals are interesting. I also think there's a chance that there's some impact of the looming lockout that could be coming next year. Obviously, when Kyle Tucker signed last night, there's a lot of people concerned about what that could mean about the future of baseball if the Dodgers are able to just, frankly, grossly overpay for. And Kyle Tucker's a great player, but he's never had a 6-win season, and $60 million a year, even if some of it's deferred. If you just do a $1 per WAR situation, you're paying for 8 wins above replacement when you're going to get 4 or 5. So the Dodgers are sort of the only team that's willing to do that. And then the Mets get Bo Bichette, a shortstop who really can't play shortstop anymore, and they're going to try to put him at third base. And I'm not really sure he can play third base. And so I think that the past 2 days will probably have some reverberations on baseball for years to come, depending on how negotiations go between the players' union and the owners.
Jacob, before we get back to with the Orioles spending money this offseason, which, by the way, Oriole fans, myself included, are cool with, talk about the international signing sequences yesterday where the Orioles, again, sending out some big dough to, you talk about magic beans. These things are little infancy beans. They're literally teenagers. A lot of Dominican players part of the equation. So what do we know about the new influx of talent coming through the international pool here?
Yeah, listen, this is if Samuel Basayo, who that was the first player that they gave a 7-figure signing bonus to in 2021, if he's sort of the headliner of what this can be and the importance of investing in Latin America and having a strong international program, this class is sort of, my guess is that when Mike Elias and Kobe Perez took over and they embarked on what was a long journey to build up the infrastructure and properly put money into the system and have scouts. And, these players sign when they're 16 or 17, but honestly, it really starts when they're about 12 years old. That's when they start getting scouted. There are some verbal agreements that typically happen when they're 13, 14, 15. And so it takes years. And so for them to get 4 players that they gave out 7-figure signing bonuses to, and 5 players that are ranked inside Baseball America's top 100 international prospects list is such a massive deal, and I just don't think it can be overlooked. I understand that last season was disappointing for the organization, and that they still haven't won a playoff game under Mike Elias. But if you compare what this organization was doing internationally before Mike Elias to what just happened yesterday, it's night and day, and it's vital to having a strong organization moving forward.
Now, how about the starting pitcher market? Of course, Ranger Suárez now off the board earlier this week. Orioles fans may be a little upset about that, but Framber Valdez is still there. Do you get the impression that the Orioles were maybe always more interested in Framber than they were Ranger?
Well, anything I'm going to say is going to be speculation. But
right.
What I think it was the opposite. I think that they were more interested in Ranger Suárez than in Framber. And now, if they said they wanted a front of the rotation arm, and I did catch this when the Orioles traded for Shane Baz, and Mike Elias said that he views Shane Baz as a front of the rotation arm, not a number one starter per se, but somebody that you can put in your number two, or number three slot there. And so, is it possible that they do go the rest of the offseason and they don't make a big splash with their rotation? I do think it is possible. That doesn't mean it's for any lack of trying. It does seem like they were pretty seriously in on Ranger Suárez, and now they still have a couple more options. But if you look at the options, there's a lot of different ones, right? There's a couple players they could trade for, right? Mackenzie Gore, Joe Ryan. The one I've been kind of guessing that they would do is Freddy Peralta from the Brewers. Only has 1 year left before he hits free agency. And then they could, there's two guys on the free agent market, Framber and Zach Gallen. And I know some fans might be disappointed if it ends up being Zach Gallen because he had a down year and he's not really seen as a quote-unquote ace. But if they do get really any of those five guys, you're looking at a rotation that would be more than strong enough to be in the playoffs. However, if they don't get one of those guys, and if they don't make any more big moves in free agency, you're looking at a very weird offseason because they did make a significant investment in Pete Alonso. But that means that they'll go into next season, again, if they don't make any big moves, with a payroll that's lower than what they went into last season. And so it's like, okay, yes, you did the Pete Alonso deal, which is a massive deal, and kudos to the front office and to David Rubenstein, but you also didn't actually increase your payroll from a season where you won only 75 games.
Now, kind of a trickle-down effect here of the Kyle Tucker thing. Everyone's up in arms about, Dodgers super team and all that, and, what this is going to do for a 2027 lockout, which just seems inevitable at this point. But do you think that turns up the heat for a team like the Orioles, who views themselves as contenders, to maybe get more aggressive? I know you were just saying that there's a possibility that they could be done spending in bulk here, but if you're looking at the immediate future here and 27 is a complete mystery, wouldn't you try to go all in on 26?
Well, I think you could make that argument in terms of if one of these free agents ends up wanting to sign a 1 year prove-it deal, Zach Gallen could fall into that category. He might be more like a 2 year deal or a 1 year with an option or whatever, but that would make sense. Or if it comes to trading for somebody like Freddy Peralta and you say, hey, we believe 2026 is a big opportunity for us and our window's open, and who knows what 2027 is going to look like. And Freddy Peralta, is probably one of the 15 best starting pitchers in baseball. So let's go get him, give up some prospects and see what happens there. So I think that makes sense. When it comes to the lockout and whether this is good for baseball, I think all these discussions are really fascinating, but I also think people sort of misunderstand. Is the Dodgers being the big bad evil empire, is that good for and being able to massively overpay on a player like Kyle Tucker? Is that good for the Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds? Of course not. And it might be bad for those fan bases. At the same time, baseball is more popular today than it was 5 years ago. TV ratings are up. The World Series ratings are massively up. And I think despite the fact that the past 2 decades have given us a lot of parity in Major League Baseball, which is a good thing and it is important, what baseball's sort of been missing is kind of that evil team that everybody hates, which is what we had with the Yankees in the early 2000s and in the 90s. And if the Dodgers are bringing that back, maybe that's a good thing for the game, even though the way that they're doing it, I think a lot of people look at it and go, maybe we need to tweak some things with the system to make this not as imbalanced as what it is.
Jacob Calvin Meyer, Baltimore Sun, talking baseball with him. Less than a month away from pitchers and catchers. Jacob, appreciate the time. Enjoy the rest of Sesame Street. I can count to 10. I used to. And when we go to the break, we're actually going to change Alex's diaper. So we're going to put some Desinex on him. Or what was it? Desinex? Or
Desitin.
Desitin. Jacob, have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, guys.